Welcome back to Dirtbag Cinema, where we cover everything from the Dolby to the drive-in. I'm Stephen King, and I'm here with my co-host, Scott Decker.
Hi! I'm damn it, I'm trying to do the other voice. I'm trying to remember the goofy one. Give me a second. Hi, I'm Scott Decker, and I'm the weird pig monster from this Saw movie.
So, welcome back to the podcast, episode 20. Today, as we talked about last week, we are covering the new chapter in the Book of Saw, Spiral. And, we kind of had a little fun there at the beginning. But the voices in these two movies are of every other Saw film, and this one are a little bit, they're contrasting.
They're a little different, yeah.
We will dive into that here shortly. First and foremost, we have the dailies, and we got some stuff to talk about. Scott, first up, what do we got?
Let's talk about Great White. You down for some shark horror coming up?
Always.
So I saw this one a couple weeks back. I didn't realize it's already dropped somewhere because people are already just bombing it online. But we watched it before we started the cast. What did you think about the trailer for Great White?
I would say it's everything that I expected, and that's why I'm always excited for a shark film. I mean, it delivered on all the notes that I wanted. Big shark, and honestly, it was very open water-esque, and I guess I didn't expect that little note. Like, it was a little less, fireworks and craziness. It was very much seemed like an isolated picture, and we'll see how she goes, but. Just hanging out there in the middle of the ocean with a raft and a little paddle and a giant great white shark is a recipe for a fun movie as far as I'm concerned. So,
I mean, I'm jazzed. I'm jazzed. We talked about it before, how like the demonic possession movies are always the one that, rustle my jimmies, the ones that make me scared actually in a theater, right?
Right.
This is the other one. No matter how, I'm not saying no matter how bad they are. There are some shark movies that are so bad they don't make me jump. But like the 47 meters downs, the reef and stuff like this, especially the shallows. If you make a decent shark movie, it taps into that primal fear I have. And this looks like it's going to do it. I'm going to go in there probably, with my arms crossed trying to be a hard ass. And I'm probably going to get a couple good out of it. So I'm excited.
Absolutely.
We got to check that one out together.
I'm excited for it. That's the whole haunted house thing, right? But there's no corners. It's all just from the deep. And that's the thing that really about the open water thing. Like, it's always, in the haunted house, it's the corners, right? It's the what's around the next corner. It's endless corners in the ocean. Anything can come from anywhere at any time. And that's a recipe for constant suspense.
Yeah, so. we don't need to tell you what happens. Pretty much they're looking for something in the water. There are sharks. They get stranded. They're still sharks. Game over.
Right.
It looks fun.
And they're going back to old glory too, and calling it out. I mean, Megalodon, fair enough. Mako's in Deep Blue Sea. I love my Makos.
Yeah.
But going back to the old Great White and calling it out in the title, good play.
Which I thought was wild because we haven't had a movie called Great White since 1978.
Yeah.
Like, that's wild.
A band too.
Yeah. Yeah. So what else we got? What's next, Steven?
Next up, we need to clarify something from last week because I know I was uninformed. I'm going to admit it now, and I'm a little bummed to say that the Friends reimagining that we were talking about, this new episode that we were pumped about, this story that was going to bring them all out of the woodwork, is just basically them getting together and watching old clips and playing games and reminiscing and doing the old nostalgia thing while James Corden just yucks and hosts the whole thing.
James Corden. So we talked about this last week and forgot to throw that in there about how there was just a general outrage with the fact that James Corden's even close to this, right? He has nothing to do with Friends. But now that it's actually like that we know that it's just a nostalgia trip and that somebody's hosting it, it makes more sense. Still doesn't suck.
Friends is one of those shows I think that I think we might have talked about it last week or on mic or off mic. There's a lot of things about Friends that didn't age well, and there's a lot of things that you can take knocks at Friends about, but I've seen a handful of posts this week that on Twitter I thought was kind of interesting. Like, Is Friends funny? Is Friends not funny? This, that, or the other. And it's like, well, I don't think it was Friends' comedy that was the primary driver that made that show legendary.
No,
because
it's
the
Friends.
chemistry.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's the thing that I think sometimes gets lost on folks. It's like, it's not, yeah, you can pull the laugh track, and yeah, it's not always that funny. It's not this ace in the whole comedy show, but it is really, I guess, a masterclass in casting. You could not have found the way that they meshed. You can't argue it. I mean, shows have tried trying to find a way to get that ensemble. It's lightning in a bottle, the same way that I've talked about other shows like in the past, True Detective. But it's not. It's just these moments that you could not find that type of chemistry elsewhere, and that's why that show was successful for 10 seasons.
Do you know what the funniest moment of Friends is for me? It's not necessarily a joke, but it was David Schwimmer doing the Hanukkah armadillo thing.
Yeah.
And he's just bumbling around trying to teach his son about Hanukkah, and it was egregious, just absolutely terrible. But to me, probably one of the hardest times I've ever laughed. Like, the show, it's not my favorite, but when I think back on fond memories of that show, it's just the individuality of each character and how it really worked. They worked. Maybe the jokes didn't always, but they worked as a unit.
On a very simple circuit.
Yeah.
I mean, you pretty much in the episode, you could kind of expect a formula that went from the coffee house to maybe, obviously, the apartment, somebody's apartment, workplace maybe, and it followed that circuit.
Yeah.
And they just, shows don't make it 10 seasons. That's just not something that's on.
Not anymore.
You don't plan that. That has to be something in the fabric of the show, and so.
So James Corden getting his $2 out of it.
I'm going to say this. I think Gunther should have hosted the show. I said it off the mic. He should have hosted the show. If there was anybody to do it, it should be the owner of the coffee house, and James Corden has no business.
I did see that Tom Selleck might be involved, so I might.
I did see Selleck in the trailer. I think that.
Giddy up.
I mean, I'm hoping that they pulled. Janice was in the trailer. So, hopefully there's some fun there with some recurring characters, and we can.
Hopefully we're not dogging it too bad. But James Corden, man, just sticking his nose in everything.
That.
Are you listening, James?
That, and also, why did you wait this long to get back together and reminisce? Like, I was really pumped that they had something of like the one where they get back together was like a mini series where I was really excited to see what happened. And we're not going to have that. We're just going to have them sniffling and crying and playing games
Which, I mean, there's something to it, but it could have been more. That's the thing.
And that, right, but we didn't have to wait this long for that.
You know who did it right? And I know I'm just going to shoehorn the better series in, which was Seinfeld. Seinfeld did it right because they never did an official one of these cash grabs, which, to be honest, probably has a lot to do. I'm not saying, Jen Aniston, they're all doing pretty well. They're all pretty still in the mainstream with the exception of a few.
Right.
But Seinfeld never officially did, a return. But they did it through Curb Your Enthusiasm, which was a masterclass. You get almost the entirety of an episode told through the writing process of Larry David, through the scene work and everything. They could not have planned that any better. And for those of you who are fans of Seinfeld and have never seen Curb, check that out. It's spectacular. Mm-hmm. But, not to beat a dead horse, I'll watch it. I'm going to see what's going on.
I'm a little bit, it's sour grapes on my part. Like, I thought I was getting some more story, like, because I'm interested on, what's, obviously it's been 20 years. What the hell's been going on in your life? It's like, well, no, we're not getting that.
We're just
getting the old-fashioned pass the Kleenex kind of shit. But whatever, I'll watch it too. I'm sure it'll be fine. Just a little jaded.
What? Oh, we got something else on here, don't we?
Yes, we do. There's a trailer for a movie that it sort of hit me out of left field. This movie's called Censor. And the trailer dropped recently. I don't know if it was this last week, but I know that I caught it for the first time this last week, and it's a very interesting horror film from what I can tell.
Yeah.
That whole era of video nasties in the UK, where you had all sorts of horror films coming out that were just too vile for,
Too gross.
innocent eyes. Yeah. And we of course we have a board that'll decide for us and put those bad boys in a jail cell somewhere, and literally if you distributed these films sometimes. And so it's this horror film kind of built around this idea of like horror existing outside of horror films, which obviously we know it does. And what better way to maybe channel that than through a censor from the 1980s in the UK, where this was really a big deal. You can't shut horror out, and that's really, as far as I'm concerned, horror a lot of times is it's a cathartic experience. We kind of step into these movies scared of stuff in real life, and we can kind of purge a little bit of that sometimes in those films. And I'm really interested. Visually, it looks great. I'm excited to see what their take is on kind of how these, how like the censorship of things. I'm really interested to see how that plays out today in our 2021 landscape.
Man, when you explained it to me before you hit play, I was like, oh, okay, whatever. But no, it really, really pulled me in. So you got the censorship idea on with like a missing persons maybe and a ghost story and all kinds of stuff.
Right.
And towards the end it takes like a bloodbath turn, like kind of being a video nasty of its own. I'm excited, man. That looks dope.
Yeah, it's like they got that the censor herself is sort of like the protagonist of the story. I mean, she's like, no, you can't see this, or no, that's too much for these viewers' eyes. And then she comes across a film that might just be too much for her.
Yeah.
And from what I can gather, it's maybe a loss in her life, like somebody
she knows.
Like a sister or something. But yeah, very interesting, very cool. Looks very down my alley personally, and I think if you're a fan of those neons, maybe they might sneak in there too. So that is, as far as I'm concerned, this week's dailies. You got anything else?
No, but I think that everybody likes Army of the Dead more than me. I mean, I've been seeing the Netflix numbers, so to speak, and people are like really kind of praising it as being like one of Zack Snyder's best movies. I don't see it.
Well, I'm ashamed to admit that I still have to catch it. Life's been tumultuous these past few weeks.
Yeah.
So I've been catching some films, but I have not had a chance to snag the new Zack Snyder joint. So I need to get my eyes on that.
I think you need to do it, and we need to have a conversation about because he has a handful of joints out there, but it's under 10. We could do a pretty quick rundown of what his best is, and I think you're gonna agree with me, man.
I think we'll be in line a lot of those.
Man, that Dawn of the Dead, baby, it's up there, and even after almost 20 years, it's still up there.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned it maybe last week, just the weight that thing carries. Like, it is one of the greatest sequels in the history of remakes. In the history of remakes.
I think it is the best remake.
That's makes an absolutely fair case for that. It's one of those ones that honors the original, but it I don't want to say improves, but it tweaks and it interprets in his own voice. And in the wake of 28 Days Later, knew what the hell was going on, and it took it.
That's a tough one, because I know we're veering. We're taking a left turn, but this needs to be said. The only other one I can think that could stand on the merits of its own filmmaking is the Evil Dead remake, which
absolutely
is spectacular. But if we come down to Dawn of the Dead or Dawn of the Dead, they are both, to me, near perfect films. But you had to have one to have the other. There's that argument. But for pure watchability and one of the best montages of all time, bar none, comedy, horror, sports, whatever, montages.
Hats off to Richard Cheese.
Hats off to Richard Cheese. It's just one of those great movies. And that for that to be a debut, that's killer, man.
Lights out, yeah.
Hey, he
Sarah
never
Polley
really recaptured that. like lightning in a bottle, though.
You know, it said something new for a new generation, and that's where zombies were coming back around for the first time in a long time. And
man, he did it really before it got cool again.
He
kind of had his finger on the pulse of this thing.
That's why I said, you know, he definitely understood the wave that Danny Boyle. Danny hit the water, and you know, you got a lot of filmmakers understanding that this is.
Oh shit, we need to do a zombie movie right now.
Right, absolutely.
But I know we're veering wildly off topic. We need to do a Zack Snyder ranked or something like that, because I think that would be really interesting. But man, I need for you the moment you start watching Army of the Dead. Either I come over or whatever, because I need to feel like I'm not in the minority here. Because I was watching it unenthused, and everybody seems to think,
hey,
and I think, and I'm not trying to say that I have, you know, the end-all be-all opinion here, but I think that people were kind of on a high from the Snyder cut, which, as they should be, as I told you, it was far and away better. It was an experience I really dug, and I'm getting ready to get that bad boy on Blu-ray when it comes out. He deserves the praise for his film. But I think that he's kind of riding on the laurels from that, and he did put out a mediocre zombie flick, which you've done better, man. Come on.
I'm excited.
That's it. That's what I gotta say. I'm done. I know we went entirely long on this, but I needed that to be said. What are you guys talking about? Look at the scores this is getting. It's not that good.
Fair enough. I'll watch it soon, and we'll reconvene and we'll talk about it. We're here. We're on to the main event then.
We are.
So
it took a lot of speed bumps to get there, but
we're
there.
Just like swirling around and around and around, and here we arrive.
That's not bad. That's not bad.
Spiral from the Book of Saw.
From the Book of Saw.
Right.
There was no fucking Book of Saw in here.
Who knew?
But yeah, we'll get to
that. Yeah, let's talk about it. We'll just kind of, as we always do, we'll give our high level thoughts. We'll give a recommendation, you know, recommend or not recommend, and then dive into some spoilers. I'll let you kick it off. What's your thoughts, Scott?
Steven, I gotta tell you, I mean, we went over it last week. I saw it before you, and then I saw it with you. So, man, I'm gonna recommend it. I went in, I think like everybody, pretty trepidatious. Like, I'm all for a splatter film, something getting gross on the screen. But if it doesn't have anything behind it, usually it doesn't keep me involved. But this one, we'll get to it later when we start ranking some stuff. So it's towards the top of my my Saw-ometer, man. Chris Rock does some interesting things. Not always, they don't always land. But for me, man, I was along with the ride. Along for the ride. And I really dug it. I mean, I saw it twice. I mean, I had to see it with you guys to keep up the facade that we were seeing it for the first time. But no, man, I really liked it. I would say I recommend Spiral from the Book of Saw.
I also would recommend this movie. I know that when we got out of this, we had some conversation that we'll dive into here shortly. But it's I think that when you go into it, just the franchise is so big at this point that it's hard for somebody to say, expect X, Y, or Z. The only thing I think you can expect are traps at this point. It's a fun new entry. I did have a good time with it. There's some good laughs, some solid laughs. I mean, really one of the greatest comedians of our generation, as far as I'm concerned. I love Chris Rock, and his best moments are when he's allowed to kind of free flow a little bit. He does a great job. Didn't realize he was in Fargo, the TV series, and you know, kind of flexed a little bit of his chops there in sort of this world of I guess police and detective and all this crime nonsense, but he does a great job. He fills that role, and you know, I there are moments where it doesn't land, but you know, God bless it. It's a horror film, and if you're coming in this thing as a stand-up comedian and wanting to flex in that world, he does a very good job for his first foray that I'm aware of in horror. So I'd recommend it. It's a good time.
Before we get into the nuts and bolts of this thing, we got to talk backstory. We talked about after the movie is Chris Rock. The pair on this guy just went up to an associate or something or another at Lionsgate and says, "Hey man, I got an idea for a Saw movie." what? We've been dormant for, 5 years, right? And he's like, hey, man, I got an idea for, a new Saw movie. If Chris Rock came up to me at a party and said, hey, I have a new idea for a Saw movie, and you're I don't know who the guy was, but if you're a prominent guy and the head of a studio, what are you going to think? Unless he just threw out the perfect script to you. Like, he talked to you for 2 hours and laid everything out. What are you going to think? Like, Chris Rock wants to do a Saw movie? This is like, what's the thing you used to do in elementary school where you put the crazy words and you try to say fart and, like, when you say a word, like, you have to say a noun, then you got to say a number, a color, or whatever.
Oh, like a Mad Lib?
It's a Mad Lib. it's exactly that. It's a Mad Lib. You got Chris Rock, Saw, long absence, the whole business.
It is, but it's also, I will say this is probably I don't want to say a direct result, but at least a splinter off of Jordan Peele's success.
Absolutely.
Comedy and horror ride a very fine line. They're like two sides of tracks. There's a very, very interesting relationship between the two. And it's cool to see these guys, bounce back and forth. But this is really cool. And I think that, Chris Rock having the heart for something like this is a little, to your point, a little unexpected, kind of Mad Libby.
Right.
But very cool.
There were parts of the movie that were, like, felt like a Mad Lib. I was like, what the is this,
Right.
But I don't know. I felt its charm more because of it.
This movie doesn't floor it in terms of the traps. What kind of what you got used to in the tail end, especially of the Saw franchise, which is just trap. And so, if you're going into this movie expecting a 10 on the hot sauce meter, you might not get that. But there are other things that are very, very cool about this movie, and other things that we'll talk about here in a moment. But outside of that, any last notes? Any last?
Yeah, I think that Chris Rock listens to this podcast. I mean, you watch that opening scene. Well, not the opening scene. The intro to Chris Rock's character.
Yeah, we go into the theater and Scott says, "Hey, the opening scene," and it was the second scene, but I knew what he meant because there's a scene where they're talking about just some stuff, and it sounded very dirtbag banterish.
We'll go ahead and tell you what it is. It's the Forrest Gump. When you watch not Jigsaw, when you watch the Book of Saw, Spiral, and they start talking about Forrest Gump, I literally looked at Steve and I go, do they have a camera in here? Because we've said verbatim these exact same things about Jenny and Forrest. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Scott, live on the mic, took an axe to Forrest Gump's head in front of everybody. So, yeah, you can't really pick a better movie to make.
It was pretty, I was sitting, because the first time I saw it with Ariel and I was watching, and I was laughing, and she's like, what's so funny? I was like, they took that from us, It was good, though.
Yeah.
So, from here on out, spoilers.
Spoiler warning out of the way. Let's talk about it. Spiral.
All right, we start off with a trap. I think there's only one or two Saw movies that don't officially start off with a trap. And this one starts off, true to form. We've been out a Saw movie for, 4 or 5 years now. So they're going to start off pretty big, right? They're going to start off with the tongue trap.
The tongue trap.
I have some problems with the timing of this trap, but overall, it's pretty dope. I kind of dig it. You got this really cool 80s dressed guy who's wearing a Miami Vice suit jacket. He runs after a culprit who snatched a purse at the beginning, falls him down into a sewer, a train track area, right? And he gets, pigmaned. He gets pigmaned right out the gate. And he wakes up. He's got a clamp through his tongue and kind of a reverse bear trap looking thing over his head. And, you get the, hello. Well, it's more like this.
Let's get that out of the way.
Let's get that out of the way. It's not Tobin Bell's voice. Tobin Bell has nothing in this. He's not. I mean, they have a picture. They have 2 or 3 pictures they show of him real quick. They're like, John Kramer's been dead for 10 years. So no voiceover, No Saw 76543 backstory. None of that, right? So, it's just a guy. It's like, hello, detective. I've come to play a game.
It sort of sounds like one of those like text-to-speech voices. That's
I did not have sexual intercourse with that woman. So, here's where I have a problem with the first trap is it's a train. Did he smelling salt the guy or whoever the bad guy is? Because he has to wake up from his excruciating pain, something through his tongue, watch the video before there's a train coming. He has to trust himself to, how is it? Decapitate his tongue? Decapitate's holy for a head, right?
For the head, yeah.
So,
but you just have to basically just
rip your tongue
rip
off.
his tongue out of his own mouth, which is hats off to this movie for, I did kind of dig the whole like body part for like the sins of that body part kind of trade-off.
Right.
I mean, this one did a very good job of, even though sometimes it was just very on the nose, they drew cool parallels. I thought that was kind of neat.
So, the one problem would be timing, because you don't know when that train's going to come through. The guy had to plan it out for the second. But Steven and I talked afterwards, so obviously it's the first trap of the movie. Homeboy doesn't make it.
Sure.
He jumps last second. You see that it would have worked. He would have got away from the train. His tongue would not have been there, but he would have got away alive, right? And then he gets smacked by the train.
Right.
So it's an effective opening for a Saw movie.
Well, and I think that's like there are a few traps throughout the Saw franchise that people don't die, and those are some of the more effective traps.
I thought that of the traps, because spoiler alert, I will say this right now. I watched this, then I went and started the franchise over. So I watched, this is number 8, right? So we had 1 through 6, final chapter. This is 9. This is 9. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Oh man, this is rough. So
well, it gets kind of, there's a lot of haze in those movies.
Yeah, I just watched them and I couldn't remember how many I watched. That's how bad it was. So I watched all of them and then this one again. And like you said, the ones that I think stick with you are the ones you think you could beat. There are traps in these films I know I couldn't beat because I'm a pussy. And there are also ones in here I know I can beat because they were unbeatable. This one, when you see the train, Steven and Rick and I talked about this after the movie. When you see the train, your initial impulse is to jump. That's what he did. But it's also a speeding train.
Sure.
So it's almost one of the perfectly executed ones if the guy woke up on time. Granted, that's a big if. He did for the sake of cinema. I get it. But I dug it. I thought it's a pretty hard opening. I liked it. And it also sets a stage for, I could tell this movie is going to be different from its 8 predecessors.
Well, and this was the one, like, if you really want to talk about like how this trap differs from some of the other traps, like this was the one that was done in broad daylight to pull the cops in.
Yeah.
This was obviously it wasn't done in a lair somewhere. It was done in a public place, like where, a train track, they said, a bum got hit or whatever, but that wasn't the case. But he, as we dive into the story, like there's a reason why this was done in the open.
Yeah.
Not in some, John Kramer layer somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, there's something before we dive in too much to this movie, I kind of wanted to talk about something real quick because it's really interesting to me, and I know I'm not the first person to talk about this, but like Saw in general, like the origin of this franchise. We talk about like history of horror and like some of these different eras. A lot of them are always sort of in the rearview mirror for us. This is one that sort of came to fruition in our teens. So like when we know all like the crazy cool movies that we love and the eras of horror that we love, a lot of times we're like, oh man, yeah, you can see how the breadcrumbs lead to what the films were that came out during that time. But this one happened right under our nose. And I kind of wanted to talk about this with you because, we were young when these movies started coming out. 2004, the first Saw comes out, right? James Wan always has his ear to the ground, kind of understands like the pulse. He's very, very good about that. And he was like,
And
I think he's
Lee
right.
Winnell, we got to give him credit
For sure, absolutely, for sure. But if you look over Juan's, he's kind of consistently done this.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I can't help but think that young, like 25, 26-year-old James Wan, whatever it was, kind of could see the writing on the wall. I was thinking a lot about like how Saw became like a franchise. A lot of people like turn their nose up to this, like, and there's like a niche, like a horror niche that loves it, and then there's like the teenagers that went and saw it because it was the dare. You know, we've talked about movies that are like the dare, like, oh, did you see this trap? Did you see that trap?
Yeah.
2004. That is 3 years after a giant event, 9/11. Right? And, you know, we're young. I know that I personally I remember the happenings of. I remember like being in school. I remember everyone was kind of somber. There was, you know, I remember things being on television.
The gas after school. I remember my mom picked me up and we couldn't get gas at a gas station. It occurs to me now why.
Right.
But then I was so confused. But yes, go on. I just had to add that.
Well, it was just like that timing of, you know, 2001. Right after that, we have one place called Guantanamo Bay, and I remember very, very just it's etched into my brain, like seeing that the evening news and the talks about torture and the talks about like how, you know, there were protests. I mean, this thing exploded immediately.
Yeah.
There was hardly any time after 9/11 before people started pushing back against how we were reacting to this. And torture was something that was very, very, it was divisive. And I don't remember it before, of course, but in my life, I don't remember ever hearing about it until then.
Yeah.
And it was in the forefront of all the news. Well, I started thinking a little bit about, like, you know, in my life, what was leading up to that time. You remember, like, the shock videos, right?
Yeah.
We were a generation of kids who grew up on, like, and I want to say for better or for worse, it's generally for worse.
Yeah.
These videos where, like, it was like the early Wild West of the internet. Like, you know, awful things that, you know, you're talking about, like, people getting chopped up.
So, I forget, and I'm not trying to put that name out there, but a buddy of mine, like, when all these movies were coming into fruition, I remember, you know, the Saw, Hostel came out a year later.
Sure.
And I wasn't into horror movies as much as I am now, but this was never my kind of horror movie, right? But he told me about this site, and I forget it to this day.
Rotten.com.
That's exactly what it was.
I was going to talk about that, yes.
The Rotten.com. It was this kind of actual real-life footage mixed in with, like, weird old porno.
Terrible.
Which I was like, that's a weird... I think that's probably where they might have coined torture porn. I just now put that together as, like, Rotten.com literally was torture porn.
97, that site, I think, was that when that site came to fruition. That was when it started, and it was just, like, autopsies and crazy-ass fucking awful.
Like, a guy getting a bead? You're like, what? It's a weird fucking segue.
But it was... Or again, like where, you know, where you're either like looking up like flash games on Newsgrounds, or you're out there like stumbling around looking at car crashes and this terrible shit where people's heads are cut off. The bottom line is it was shocking.
Yeah.
For the first time in a real way. And we have had a ton of gore in horror films forever, right? You can't say there's not been gore. But this was the first time that we were like exposed to the real shit in copious amounts without any sort of like, there was no gate. And so you have this generation of of kids growing up where you would talk at school about like the craziest video, the craziest picture. I mean, 2 Girls, 1 Cup is not torture porn, but everybody knows what that is, right? Because
yeah. I think a buddy of mine straight up ruined my aunt's computer with that. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So you have this generation.
Hopefully she's not listening to this one. I didn't look that up. Somebody else looked it up. He ruined your computer, not me. He really wish he didn't. It was not me. I didn't do it.
Well, I just think it's really interesting because, you know, we come from this generation of people who were daring each other to see the most atrocious thing possible, and like, you know, you have this guy, like I said, who has his ear to the ground almost. Like, he understands the beat of the generation. And all of a sudden, 2004, you combine that storm of like, what did you see? What was the craziest thing you could possibly see? The shock value stuff, and then the reality of the world, like the world news, which was, post 9/11 America.
Gruesome shit.
And torture, and you have all of a sudden, like, what are we afraid of? America felt guilty. Like, we were doing stuff, even though we were like, it was almost like reactionary, and now we're guilty, and whatever you want to say. It was just like, now we have people on screen in traps, the most brutal, grotesque stuff you can imagine, right? Winnell and I don't know if Juan looking, right, but like, when they're looking up like these old school torture methods, like they've looked up so many different old school stuff. A lot of what they did was like rooted in history.
Yeah.
And so it's like, they're looking for the shock, but also combining it with like this like cultural temperature where it's like we're all scared of ourselves, and all this was going on to lead up to Spiral, where here today we have what we see on our screens, what we're dealing with today.
The police brutality
yes.
is central in this one.
That's what you see.
And I am really glad that you dived into the history books of Saw, because you might get somebody out there who is just a video nasty cat who just wants to see somebody get their leg ripped off. But there's really more to it in the overarching story. Like, and I think their original short and everything they did, like, the original Saw is not a perfect film by any stretch of the imagination. But for what it did for horror films and for the ending alone, it's a fucking ride.
Yes.
And it is worth the price of admission far and away.
It's not a perfect film, but it is a perfectly timed film.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And the ones that followed, we'll get to that later. But I think that Chris Rock and company, mainly Chris Rock, is trying again to put his finger on the pulse. And for better or for worse, he does it sometimes. Like I said,
right.
I'm not going to say this is the original Saw, but it has some similarities in the time of what's going on right now. Right now, we every time we get on Facebook, every time we get on Yahoo, every time we get on anything, you see something about a dirty cop. You see something about a cop who overextended his means, who did this, who did that. And this movie 100% takes place around a police department in which Chris Rock is, I don't even say, he's a disgraced detective, but not really. He's pretty much what they painted to be the only good cop in a sea of bad cops, right? And you plop him into modern day John Kramer. Like I said, they call it the Book of Saw. And they only say that because John Kramer's been dead for 10 years. They don't even say the name of the city. I don't even think it's an unidentified city. But like, John Kramer's been dead for 10 years, and this is just a city that knows about Saw. That's it. They just know about John Kramer, and they plop him in after this initial death, and you get a very cavalier Chris Rock right from the beginning. He starts off the movie cracking jokes about Forrest Gump and being undercover in a mission where he wasn't supposed to be undercover.
You said it, honestly, like, some of the best moments of this movie, if not the best, is when he's just being almost like that, I don't say that Bad Boys-esque cop, right? Like, going in and fucking up the drug dealers and getting shit done. I loved that. That was very good. And Chris nailed that part where, he kind of flexes that, when I say Bad Boys, like, kind of think of like the way that, like a Will Smith plays that character. Like that funny, but can be serious. He can play a very fun cop to watch. Yeah. Very much more a police procedural movie than, previous Saws, and on purpose. Yeah. Like, it's a double-edged sword because the movies themselves might not have been better, but I found like the characters who were just your average Joes who were dealing with their own sins for X, Y, or Z reason. John Kramer decides whatever. We're always a little bit more varied in their swath of like why they're there. If you're a bad cop, there's generally like one or two reasons why you generally cost somebody their safety of their life. Right. You're just a seedy, shitty person, or you're a coward. Like, and so, you really have a couple lanes to move through there. And so, not that the traps in the way that he executes it is bad. It's just that there was less room just by default to move within. Yeah.
I agree. With this one, though, and I know we talked about this off mic, and also right after we saw this, I was in a dark place. I watched every single one of these back to back to back to back to back. I was setting traps for ex-girlfriends. I was setting traps for all kinds of people, right? Like, I had schematics out and all kinds of shit. I was going to make it work, brother.
When you left the theater and said, I'm about to go watch the next, 87 Saw movies, I was worried for my man's health. I was like, okay, you call me, check in every 45 minutes or so. I don't want some pig face video.
Hello. So I did not do any of that, but I will say for this movie's continuity, it kept with the dirty cop thing, and that I dug because it showed that they were doing shady shit. Whereas when you get into the later installments of Saw, I remember I text Steven and Rick, hey, this guy is in a trap for smoking cigarettes. I'm not making that shit up. And it was 6, I think, the one where they really go heavy on the medical system, which is funny, but I also get it. John Kramer had cancer. They really go into the backstory.
Right.
And why they're going after the medical system. I get it for a movie, but for some of it, it's fucking laughable. Because the first one, which is actually a pretty decent trap, is the one where you know how... as a kid, you're hold your breath underwater for how long or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
That was essentially the trap.
Right.
You had an oxygen mask on, and you had to hold your breath longer than the cat with who'd been smoking forever. So they put up this this cat who'd been smoking for 40 years. He's even though he knew cigarettes were bad, he kept smoking. Okay, but that's not illegal. That's not immoral.
Right.
Yeah, his sin was that he smoked cigarettes. So for this movie to actually stick with people who've done illegal things in what's supposed to be a profession where you keep your head up high, I liked that they kept that continuity with it.
And that's the thing too, is the cops themselves, some of the victims, if you will, if you want to, or just, you call them victims, but it's almost hard because throughout the Saw franchise, it's always pound for a pound, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not just always illegal activity. Sometimes it's just immoral, like the turning of the eye.
Right.
Yeah.
So, after our initial trap and after the introduction of Chris Rock, you immediately get thrust into, oh shit, we have a copycat Jigsaw. And let's see, what's his name? Minhella? The guy who plays this, I can't pronounce his last name.
Yeah.
Immediately, right out the gate, Chris Rock gets saddled with a rookie cop. The one thing I loved and also hated about this movie is the so by-the-book cop drama it is. I love myself a good cop movie, dirty or otherwise.
Sure.
And you're too close to this. And there's always a heat wave going on in a crime movie that's really good,
Yes,
these specificities that were there were things that Chris Rock had to have put in there. It's not a writer. No writer worth their salt is going to put in those cliches. Right. I think that those are probably put in by somebody who knows that this is going to be a fun watch for people who are aware of the genre. Right. And putting in the heat wave, putting in the lines that are in every single cop drama I liked. So he's straddled with a rookie. He's also under the shadow of his father, who's been gone from the force for a better part of a decade, right?
Yeah.
Who is played by the incomparable Samuel L. Jackson. And I know I said a couple casts back, they couldn't make the age thing work. It was speculation, okay? Don't come at me, bro. Don't at me. It worked. It really did, because, I don't know, maybe the under goatee of Chris Rock maybe worked out for the age.
Could be, but Sam Jackson also has, in my opinion, has sort of hit a plateau, where obviously when you see him, increasing through his 20s, 30s, 40s, he was looking older, but he's to me, like, could still sell a 50-year-old man. He's not, like...
No, he looks younger now than he did with hair. In his earlier films,
yeah.
He's one of these cats that looks better bald. He's a Bruce Willis. He took a page from the Die Hard movies because when he was in Die Hard, he looked ancient. Now that he's out of the 90s, he looks a lot better. And he works as Chris Rock's dad because they both have that motherfucker attitude. And it really does work because I think from all the things we heard and saw in this movie, I think the hardest exclamations were when we laughed.
Absolutely. Sam Jackson, Chris Rock, the way that they kind of thread that needle, it works really well. But, and we'll get into this, but I think that when that stops, because it does stop.
It does.
But when you're watching the film, it sort of does... yank you back a little bit, and it's like, okay, well, there's a lot of work that goes into portraying a troubled cop, not just a cocky cop that's having a good time on the screen. It didn't always land. So,
all right. Before we get into how you're obviously going to give this a lower score than me, this is not Serpico. All right, this is not Pacino getting shot in the face. And I will, when we get to the later kills and everything, and we talked about this right after the movie, I think you and I are pretty on par with how much we liked it, but for different reasons, I think. Because when the comedy starts going away is when people start getting ripped to pieces. And I think, because, stay true to what we talked about right after the movie, you and I'd be cracking jokes at a crime scene. It's morbid, it's grotesque.
You're right.
But I think that if that's your job... That's what they would be doing, right? Like you're trying to break the rook into this is natural way of life. But when your best friends, colleagues, even shitheels that you can't stand that are very close to you start getting ripped to pieces, then you would start losing your shit in a little bit. And I think that's the only way to justify how Chris Rock stopped almost on a dime with the comedy. Because I noticed it too. Halfway through the movie, he's not cracking jokes anymore. He's really more stoic and more kept and everything. And I get it. The more I thought about it, I think the second viewing actually helped me with that because the first time I was like, oh, like it was a different movie the first half. Well, of course. If I'm doing my job and everybody around me just starts getting their fingers ripped off, like it might be a little tough to keep your game face on.
Sure, but I think that you're obviously going to get home runs on the comedy. I felt like when it did flip, which naturally makes sense, it's just that we didn't get the home runs on the other end for multiple reasons. Right. I mean, what you have here, like the more police procedural type of thing, I think that these types of movies work best when you have like a dynamic, like a yin and yang. And I don't think Chris Rock had that. It was him versus the system in a lot of ways.
Right.
And I get it, but I think that what we had with our rookie cop didn't quite deliver, for reasons, but it also, I don't know. I feel like it took away from the overall performance that Chris Rock could have given because you just talk about True Detective, right? You talk about Seven. This movie Seven is brought up a lot because of the color scheme. And you called it. It has a very Seven
the color
palette.
Yeah.
Yes. But also in terms of like the way that Seven plays out, like I love that movie. It's a very police procedural film.
It really,
but you have a very good dynamic between two cops that like one spicy and one grounded, and it plays out so well. Where this movie, if they just would have given maybe Chris Rock a little bit more on the other end of the scale, I think it would have played better for me as a police procedure. If you're going to dedicate yourself to that story.
All right, I think the police procedural of it all would have worked better. All right, we're already in the spoilers. I'm just going to crack it open here. If they would have let the rookie cop, live longer. If they would have done that, if they would have had a camaraderie, like usually in these kind of films when the other part of the duo like Misa's untimely, and that's the crux of the movie. That's when it gets tipped over, that's when everything boils over to the climax, right? They kind of do that here, but they miss their shot. And they do it in such a way that if you hadn't already figured out the twist, you saw the twist coming now. Which I told you, and I told everybody I saw this movie with, I saw the twist as soon as they said, hey, can I borrow your phone?
Right.
Because in my head, after seeing 8 Saw movies, I'm building up to the final montage, right? You know what the first thing they showed in that montage was?
Yep.
Hey, can I see your phone? Because I'm going to pretend to be your dad and get you in this warehouse. They were sloppy. When the reveal came, it was great. It was probably the top 2 Saw reveals. Like, in the ending, for me, they did it well and led it up to the next one. But the reveal of the bad guy itself was laughable. Because for me, being an avid moviegoer, I was like, okay, he's the bad guy, right? So it's got to be him and nobody else. Nobody else can be the bad guy. If they would have let his character, and I say character in quotations, being the rookie cop, live longer, make a suitable like yin to his yang, and like be friends, like cultivate that relationship better, boom, you got a money relationship there. And when he dies, show it better than some bullshit cutscene. You have some feeling there for the, you know, the big reveal at the end.
I agree. I think that everything you said, I'm in line with. I didn't watching the film the first time through. That actually didn't land. I was the phone. Looking back, it makes absolute sense. But it was this, you know, the fact that when our rookie cop gets all butchered and we don't see it. And if you don't show a killing in a Saw film, there's something up.
The face, right? Yeah, you got to show the face because once again, I left here watching 2 through 7 or 2 through 8, right?
Right.
And every time they didn't show the person A get 100% horrifically mangled or B the face,
right.
Something always happened.
Right.
And in the last one, what was it? What's the one before this one? Jigsaw.
Yeah.
That was the big turn. Like at the very beginning, you see the guy go into the saws, and you don't see him die. And then like the cutscene shows Jigsaw like hobbling out because he's an old cancer patient at this point. Because he's like, he didn't deserve to die. Because he was putting a motherfucker in a trap for mixing up x-rays. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. There's some humanity to the character, but once again, you're humanizing a serial killer. And also, like, you're trying to trick us when we don't need to be tricked at this point. But I digress for Saw 8. I digress. There was some... If they would have let... his name's Max, right? Minghella or whatever. He's been in a whole bunch of shit. But if they would have let his character... like go to fruition, like actually become more of a full-fledged character. You didn't see his family, you didn't see his kid, you didn't see his wife. All very fucking suspicious when you think about it at the end, right? If they just would have fleshed that character out more, maybe draw out the movie 10 more minutes. That's fine. If you would have make the punch, I love when I'm tricked in a horror movie or a thriller or something like that. When I don't know who the guy is at the end, you get points. When I do, you lose them every single time.
Fair enough. Yep. And I mean, both of those tells were really good. I missed the first one, I guess, but the second one was just, I mean, it was so on the nose, like especially with a film like this, like so. Yeah,
especially since it wasn't a trap.
Exactly. You didn't see. If you don't see them die in this movie,
so
then there's something up.
In a movie about traps, there was no trap. They just filleted the guy who conveniently had a tattoo that said Charlie.
Which is like absolutely like symbolism, right? For wearing the skin of the thing that you're trying to be. It's
going back to what you said, the original cop, because they're all cops in this one.
Right.
He, the tongue thing. He was accused of lying under oath, right? So his comeuppance was to lose his tongue.
Right.
The second cop, which I think was honestly the best of the traps. Finger Boy.
I would only disagree for one of the trap, but we'll talk about that later.
We'll get to that because I think I know where you're going.
It's a very good trap.
I think it's a very good trap because he was very trigger happy. And this is where a lot of the pushback comes back with Chris Rock's character, because he is a admittedly dirty cop. He's all kinds of shady shit. He shot a guy for pretty much flipping him off. Like, they talk about shitty cops, but they don't slap you in the face with it, which is something I do appreciate in a movie like this. There are trailers that have offended me more than this movie. There are like body cam centered trailers, which are like take a pro left or a pro right step. They don't go straight down the middle, which sometimes you need to in a film. Or as this movie like says, there are bad guys and there are good guys, and I appreciate that in the filmmaking. And in this one, they literally just show a shitty cop shooting somebody, and his comeuppance is fingers. Like, because he's trigger happy, he has these, they look like Chinese finger traps,
yes,
right?
Absolutely.
And he's connected to a mechanism that has those, but he's also in a pool of water, which if he doesn't literally lop off his fingers within, a minute? They always like to do a minute, right?
Right, yeah. You just gotta bite down on the thing, and like it just pulls his finger. It is very gross.
It is, and I think, for me, I think that one works the most. But we'll get to. I think I know what your number one is too. But rips his fingers off, and wouldn't you know it, just in time for him to get shot to death. If he would have done it a couple more seconds.
That's the thing. Like, I just, there's not a lot of room in these movies. Like, if it's a serial killer, they have to die. So it sort of takes the juice out of the I mean, outside of the gore effect, nobody's walking away.
They have to do it immediately. And that's, if Homeboy would have jumped off as soon as he heard the trap logistics in the beginning, would have lived. Now, here's the thing. I don't know how far he is away from, other people or whatever. He would have made it without a tongue, bleeding everywhere, but he would have been alive. If Homeboy would have bit down on the thing with the finger trap as soon as they told him what to do, but here's the thing, that's not realistic. I get what you're saying. This guy is also not John Kramer. He's not Hoffman.
Sure.
So he's trying to make them to where they rehabilitate themselves. So I thought that the second time through. The second time I watched it all the way through, the first time I was like, he's more of a Hoffman than he is a Kramer. The second time, I didn't think that at all. He's wanting them to rehabilitate themselves, much like a optimistic John Kramer of the first couple of films, right? That's not what I thought the first time through. Second time, I was like, okay, he gave them time. Maybe not a great timetable. You have to do them almost on the dot, but when I think I know what your favorite trap is, that's the most fucked one, and I don't think I like that one at all.
So you're talking about like this killer wants to give these guys guys and gals an opportunity to rehabilitate themselves. I don't know if that's the case because
you can't shoot anybody without fingers.
Well, that's true, but you also at the very end, like when you get to this the end game of what his story is, like you sort of have a lose-lose, and you have a character who hasn't done anything wrong, who receives punishment out of something. It's just simply revenge.
Right.
There's not a rehabilitation there. It's just, and you do wonder, is there really that whole, like, I want to give you a chance to consider life, like the John Kramer thing.
I agree. And I think it's a tough road to go down Saw-wise.
Right.
Because of, they know the history of Saw much like we do as the audience, which is interesting. And I was thinking about that more after the second viewing because this guy didn't know fuck all about John Kramer except for what he saw in police records, right?
Sure.
So, like, it's just a rare outline, like a rough outline of what he wants to do to try to prove a point, which it works for this story. But when it comes to, like, if you and I were to do this right now, we probably would have loose ends, which is exactly what he had, which is interesting. And I figure, spoiler alert, the bad guy gets away at the end of this movie. When it comes to the second movie, if they don't tighten that up, they have failed. 100%. If they don't tighten up what his intentions are and the traps, then they have failed. The way I saw it in this film is that he is a bumbling artist. He is trying to prove his point and also let them get away with it. But also, he fucked it up. He's new.
Yeah, I hear you on that. I just think that, like, this was very
bumbling artist.
The way that this was put together, when you get to the very end, the last 15 minutes of this film, it takes an absolute insane amount of preparation and understanding of what you're doing. Like, the entire movie was building up to this whole, like, the whole, like, strings on the puppet thing. That little cop puppet with the gun. And
that was cool.
The pig head on the cop puppet. But it was also very, very on the nose. It's like, okay, yes, we sort of get that. But at the end, like, the way that Sam Jackson gets drawn up, that was never going to be anything else. He knew that obviously
they
it's
also showed that in the
save
trailer,
him.
didn't they? Didn't they show him actually with the marionette strings?
I don't remember.
I was like, motherfucker. Like,
I just thought that it was kind of like for this guy to have like the whole like the outs on like, oh, he doesn't know what he's doing, or he's just, trying to give somebody a chance to be their better self. He just was like trying to kill the old chief of police, and like he had no intention of letting him out of that trap. Even if old boy Chris Rock went along with what he was saying. No chance. The cops were already on their way, and he knew it. And so it's like, well, you're going to cut through the door. That's what you do if you're a cop.
Right.
He just wanted to relive that moment.
Point. Right. I'm with you. I'm with you on that. He doesn't want Sam Jackson to live. But at the same time, like, if he wouldn't have tried to kill Ming Hella, whatever, the rookie cop, like, he could have, like, stayed in front of the dad, the gun wouldn't have come up, like, something like that. Like, if he wouldn't have tried to go after him.
If the cops all come in and, like, because when the door got cut, it started the marionette thing.
That's also a problem. Sam Jackson is strung up like a marionette, and they shoot him because he brandishes a gun. He doesn't. The wire contraptions holding him up do. Are you stupid? Okay.
But also,
I get one person shooting him. Maybe two. There's like, 10 cops there?
Yeah, but that's also like which one person gets shot. If you and I both walk into a room and a gun pops up in the middle and somebody's holding it, like the question then comes out.
I'm going to talk him out of it. I'm smooth as butter, baby.
I believe you. I don't know if he does, though. And that's the question as far as those guys are concerned.
They nailed the overkill thing.
I understand the message, and it's an important message that we've got to
Swiss cheese at the end.
But the problem was that if you're going to give this guy, and I'm not talking about you. I'm just saying, like, if we're going to give this guy the benefit of the doubt of trying to, just give like this re-education to the police department, like, you have to do a better job. Like, you cannot continue down this road. But at the very end of the movie, like, you have like this guy who just has already decided that his dad's going to die. It's no better than in the other films when Amanda takes over or Hoffman takes over, and they just start murdering people because your sins are your sins. Chris Rock didn't do anything to anybody in this movie, but we saw.
Right.
We saw him suffer in the last moments of this movie.
I did like that they spared him, and that was one thing we talked about before, is that the fact that they left him
Chris Rock?
His fate to be decided for the next film. Chris Rock.
Yeah.
So to tell you the ending, to bounce back a little bit, our killer in this film is his whole backstory is spurned on by the fact that Chris Rock's ex-partner unjustifiably just gunned down his father in cold blood. Chris Rock didn't see him. It was something behind closed doors. It was for the ending montage for us to see, right? So in all these years, he's been stewing, and like he's been trying to come up with a way to show them what's what, but also teach them a lesson.
What was it was underneath the umbrella of this act. What was the name of the that gave them the impunity? It was
Section 8 or
something like that. Yeah,
Section something or another,
and it gave him like the ability to just murder this guy.
So what Steven alluded to earlier, why Sam Jackson was the final trap is because that as his father all these years earlier, he enacted these Section 8, Section 9, whatever the hell it was, pretty much for cops to act without impunity. Yeah, they could do whatever they wanted. They could kill people for the betterment, right, of what was going on. It's a very Dark Knight Rises, like legality of it. Like, if they're doing it for the betterment, like, what's wrong? But they're still killing people.
Absolutely.
And we brushed over one kill, which I think is probably going to be your...
Yeah, so Chris Rock, he's looking for his old partner. They have some interactions throughout the film. He's an alcoholic. His old partner's an alcoholic. He's reformed. Well, as far as his alcoholism is concerned.
Yeah, working the system.
He's trying to bounce back, I guess. But, regardless, he was the guy that just shot somebody and murdered him in cold blood.
For no reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except he knew something. He saw something.
But they didn't allude to what it was.
Right.
And that was the tricky part.
Yeah. It felt like there was something that he was covering something up. Yeah.
For another cop.
Exactly.
And that was interesting editing. And I will say, before we go off on a fucking hellacious tangent, is that Darren Lynn Bousman took over for James Wan after the original Saw. He directed 2, 3, and 4. So he really set the roller coaster of the Saw franchise off after James Wan. And those movies, albeit like they may be in everybody's upper echelon of Saw films, they're not the best directed. This, to me, sequentially... I'm not saying acted. I'm saying like how everything paces out. He learned his lessons from the failings of certain films, right? And I think that this is his best. I never saw that Repo, the Genetic Opera.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody who's a goth in 2012 really, really loved that movie. My sister, if she's listening, she loved that movie too. But he directed that, and I think that was like one of his bigger movies. But like... I think with pure direction as it is, this is his best movie he's filmed. And it has its failings obviously towards the end, but I veered off track completely for your kill. My bad,
no,
Steven.
You're fine. He directed this film very well.
I think with what the story he was given, like if you look, he did 2, 3, 4, and this one. Oh, we talked about the color palette. I think the color palette to me eased the story. That's a weird thing to say.
No, 100%. It's warm.
It's warmer. And I know we talked about this right after the movie, and it didn't occur to me till the second time around. Because the first one, I was prepared for a Saw movie. And it is a Saw movie. But I expected the bright, white, neon lights pulsing down on every gruesome thing. Very surgical.
Yes.
And yes. You see the splatter of everything. For this... the color palette is very Saw. It's very David Fincher. It's very matter of fact. It is a police procedural.
Very seven.
Is that what I say?
Saw. But I know what you're
shit.
saying.
Yeah.
I'm with you. Yeah.
All right. These long boats. So, yeah, these snappers get to me. But yeah, it's very Seven.
You're right.
The color palette is very Seven, which makes it more detached. See what I did there? Detached?
Yes.
But it made it like I could watch it from a distance and not be as disturbed as I was to 2, 3, 8, 9,
absolutely.
10.
And that's the thing too, is like Lee came back and he did those films, and it wasn't like it was completely detached from the original. But when they did Saw 2, they said that this movie is now a franchise. That's fine. It's not saying that at that point it became nuts. It's just saying at this point,
all bets are off.
It's wide open waters, baby.
Okay, when you make Saw 8 and you are still doing backstory,
right?
You've jumped the shark. You know what I mean?
But when you start like opening up that valve and saying, okay, so we know that this thing is going to pull in 80 billion people like us, teenagers like us, I cannot help but think that what happened behind the scenes, Twisted Pictures, what's going on? First of all, Twisted Pictures. A studio that was literally built around this idea. They've done a ton of movies, like they did Texas Chainsaw, some stuff in there.
Yeah, but I mean, that's all
they built
Dunes,
this around Saw.
Platinum Dunes and everything. Like Twisted Pictures is Saw.
Exactly.
I can't tell you when you said Texas Chainsaw, I was like, what? I can't tell you anything else Twisted Pictures actually produced except for Saw. But I can tell you they did Saw.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know that logo, and you know why they built that logo, because one movie. Yes.
Now we're just, telling the story of Saw. But the one thing I do like is that it became, and I'm sure I'm not the first person to say this, the Friday the 13th of horror films for our age. At a point in the 80s, every year you had a Friday the 13th movie. At a point in the early 2000s, every single year from 2004, you had a Saw movie. And whether you like it or not, that's something like we take for granted now. But that's something very cool because you look at it now and it's they had a blood drive. Like I was doing my research for these things, and that's something I forgot because I was too young. Like I was I was still in middle school when the first one came out, right?
Sure.
So like they did a blood drive every year for when the Saw came out. Like it's Halloween, it must be Saw. So until the last couple, they were cranking them out one after the other, and like they started to realize the good they were doing the blood drive and stuff, and like even with something so gruesome, something good came out of it, and that really warms my heart. Even with such a convoluted, nonsensical fucking series as this, they actually like, and even towards the end, they were pulling in money. Like even with the last one they did, which was woof, they made money. As far as I could see, they had a planned trilogy for this last guy. Didn't come to fruition for some reason. And I guess it kind of worked out for Chris Rock, but it didn't work out for Johnny What's-His-Name in Jigsaw.
I'm glad you brought that up because the horror community, they're some of the best people in the whole wide world. You would not expect it if you look at the movies, but damn it, if it's not some of the most giving and the biggest hearts that you'll find. And I'm yes. Who does a blood drive? Not Jerry Maguire.
Not Jerry Maguire might. Tom Cruise might do it. Yeah.
But I'm just saying.
Show me the blood!
But yeah, that's incredible. I'd forgotten about that too.
We gushed about the franchise as a whole, which is something I would not have done up until this rewatch, because I'll be honest, these were in my rear view. All these movies, with the exception of one being so embedded in my horror knowledge and heart, I love one. Every one after fell by the wayside, and watching them back to back, although detrimental to my personal health, was interesting because I value them more as a franchise, which is something I was trying to do with Friday the 13th not too long ago. It got a little crazy. I need to finish it up, but I respect them more as a franchise than I previously did, so I'm glad I did it this way. But we said all of that to say that we missed one kill, one trap. Steven, what's your favorite trap in this movie?
Let's actually, if you want to use this as a segue before we grade this movie, do you want to do the fun thing? You want to do 5 favorite Saw traps?
I got 5 on it.
We got 5 on it, so we talked about this beforehand off mic. What we wanted to do was, for fun, kind of compile our 5 favorite Saw traps. We got 9 movies, tons of traps. I mean, a lot of them that are great won't make them onto our list, but we are going to try to isolate our 5 favorites. Mine first up, Scott, he sort of alluded to it. I'll kick this thing off. I think in my 5th spot, this movie has one of mine, Spiral. The death of Chris Rock's partner, the way that, so he goes through his alcoholism and he's, sober. When we first meet him outside of flashbacks, he's at AA in this church, right? And doing his whole thing and kind of leading the group. And the way that this guy gets his comeuppance is, it's a little bit extravagant, but it's, for my money, this one is the most symbolic in a lot of ways. The ghosts of his past, his demons being shot at him at 400,000 miles an hour or whatever the hell. These beer bottles being ground up into tiny shards, basically like a hand grenade being shot at him. And there's something about there's a lot of kills in Spiral here. It was like 5 traps maybe. 5 traps total. This one where you really just get hammered for, round after round after round. You feel like you're in the ring. I felt exhausted after each time this guy got a chance. And at the very end, those beer bottles get the best of him, and it is an absolutely brutal take on your ghost catching up to you, and you can't ever escape your past. So number 1 for me is coming, or excuse me, number 5 for me is coming from Spiral. I guess the glass grinder or whatever you call that, the beer bottle trap.
That was good. I am surprised to hear you say that because I forgot about that one, and apparently we both forgot about Sam L. Jackson's number 2 and Chris Rock's number 1, the lady in charge. she met a fucking gruesome death in this one, and for me, it was the hardest to watch, and also the most upsetting. Because, like, usually in a Saw movie, a Saw proper, where they're not just out to kill you, you can do something to save your life. You can cut off a finger, a dick, whatever it is. You're going to get out of there and live some semblance of a life, right? Well, Chris Rock's captain, who was his father's lieutenant, I don't know what the underling is.
Right.
So she saw all of the corruption under the article, what have you, that he enacted. And she got put into, to me, was I can see limbs ripped off all day. But what they did to this poor woman, they strapped her down. She had a blade. It was at the base of her, was it the end of her neck? And
yeah.
So they pretty much, in the creepy voice of the new Saw pig, told her you had to separate your spinal cord or this hot wax is going to waterboard you. Whoa. There's a lot to take in here. There's waterboarding with hot wax. And the thing is, none of the other Saw traps are like, you might look a little fucked up. Like, you got some scratches, you do this. You might even cut off an arm. I mean, I'm not here to say the people listening to our podcast who are quadriplegic aren't living valuable lives. But if you go from one thing to the other, I feel like the lesson learned and what you have done to yourself is not as equal as previous things. That's all I'm saying. And for you to be like, oh, not only is my face fucked up from the boiling wax, I'm also wheelchair bound and so on. So, gruesome. It is not in my top 5, but I had to throw that in there because I thought that was your number 5.
I'll just say, I think the most effective part visually of that sequence was after the fact.
Oh, yeah.
The hot wax thing, you got to see faces. I mean, you remove the face, you remove a lot of that connection. The weight of the decision is huge, and it is one of the biggest in the film. You're right. I mean, it's you will never walk or use your arms again, or you die. Which is, we're used to some of these like incredibly brutal choices in these films, but yeah, we lose her face, and I thought that was a little bit tough because. Even if her eyes would have been there, maybe we would have hit a little harder. But losing everything completely, when he pulled that off and it looked like a slab of like bacon, that was rough.
I think they did that for that exactly. I think what you're saying is also what you're saying. They did the waterboarding of it, so to speak, so they could take off that the cloth or whatever they had on her. Number one, to I don't know, make it feel like a waterboarding situation. Number 2, so they can have a reveal.
Right.
So when he takes off the veil, so to speak, she's mangled.
Yeah, it's rough.
And also, like, here's the thing. When you think of the consistency of traps, like that one, I think just sticks with me because it feels like you're getting ripped off. Like, if I were that chick, having read the case file of all the Saw things, I'm like, this motherfucker over here only had to cut off a couple fingers, right?
Right.
I have to completely sever my nervous system, right? But also, when you have boiling liquid pouring on your face, you're going to be jerking around. She probably did it on an accident and fucked up her neck.
Sure.
I just think
you got to see
logistically,
that too.
Logistically, that one was the hardest to watch for me. Not because it was gruesome, because it was vicious.
Well, it's funny because, like, and actually just, piecing it together here as we talk about it, like, one of my biggest critiques of the film was like the police procedural versus the individual dealing with their own personal demons as opposed to the demons of the system. And his partner's trap, was the only one that dealt with outside influence. It was not about what he did as a cop. It was his alcoholism. And that's funny because that was the one that stuck out to me the most as the most, I guess, powerful, because it dealt with his own personal demons. Like, his death was being shot to death or torn to death by beer bottles, which literally tore him apart for years.
Yeah.
So I thought that was an extremely powerful image, and it went beyond the it's too like the procedural side of things. Yeah.
I love the how they do that later on. Like this one, I you see the writing on the wall, like the beer bottles were like this one's more on the nose than previous installments, but there were some in the the first few were like, oh, really creative.
True.
My number 5, we already talked about it. It's the finger trap from Spiral.
Right on.
And I just thought it was effective. It was gruesome enough. Yep. It got to the point homeboy shouldn't use his fingers to be capping fools for no reason. And you felt, and here's where I'm going to take like a half and half stance on my picks here. Half of them are cinematic picks. The other half are, do you think you could make it picks? This one gives you like some semblance of hope because of how it was shot, how it was sped up and everything. You feel like he fucked away some time back there, and he could have made it, sure, without fingers. He can get some fingers later. It's a wild, crazy new world out there. He can get some prosthetic digits, right? That is fair comeuppance for shooting somebody in cold blood.
Fair.
But he didn't make it. And also, he had the worst death cry I've ever heard. That he did in there, I laughed out loud both times. Because he was losing it.
But this was my second favorite kill in the movie. I hats off. That's a good pick.
Yeah, I thought it was good. It was pretty fun. The finger trap Spiral.
Nothing wrong with that one. That's a good pick. Number 2 for me is going to be, number 4. I think we did this before on the Handshake 5.
Yeah, we did this every single time we've had to count something down.
Number 4, counting down for me. This one comes straight out of Saw 3D. It was so gross and so iconic. Such an iconic trap. And I'm talking about the reverse bear trap.
The reverse bear trap?
Yes, yeah. That number 4 for me is when it finally goes off on Jill in Saw 3D. And I'm a big fan of these, horror movies, and I'm also a fan of video games. And I'll tell you what, in Dead by Daylight, whenever that pig monster gets a hold of you, he throws that reverse bear trap on your head, and if you don't get away from it, it takes your jaw. And when they did it in the films, it lived up.
I will say that I love the reverse bear trap, but I will say it's not in my 5.
Okay.
Which is, it's blasphemous, I know. But
No.
I know it's blasphemous because of this reason and this reason only. And I'm not trying to knock your number 4 because this is a solid number 4. The only reason I did it is my honorable mention. We'll get to yours. So after we get down, we'll have an honorable mention. This is mine because everybody knows Saw from the reverse bear trap from 1. But then they put it on Hoffman in 5? Or at the end of 6. One of the two. When Jill finally meets up with him and there's a whole big backstory about how, John sent her a letter or whatever. She puts it on him. He has and I don't like Hoffman. Don't get me wrong here.
No, yeah.
You know who's my boy? The barista from Gilmore Girls. You know what? That's what I'm talking about. He should have lived. We'll get to that. But how Hoffman gets out of the reverse bear trap, super dope. Super dope. Great ending. But then he pulls it off. The only reason the reverse bear trap is my honorable mention is because it was used 3 times. But the reason why it's still there is because it's iconic. If you look up Saw right now, you're going to see a picture of Amanda with a reverse bear trap. Because it is what it is.
And the 3rd time is the charm.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly right. I didn't think about it till now.
To your point, it is very, very... It happens a lot. But when you finally see the moment, that's where...
And that's why I'm happy you said that specific moment. But for a trap as it is, it's got to be my honorable mention just because... You're waiting for 7 movies. Come on, guys.
No, that's fair. Yeah.
Well, that didn't count as mine. So, number 4, I'm gonna double dip on Spiral just because I talked about it earlier. I really dug the subway trap.
Okay.
The tongue.
Yeah.
I thought that for a quote unquote livable one, for something that you think, I mean, granted, if anybody gets in these situations, they think they can make it out. If I had to push my face against butcher knives to like hit a thing and do this, I'm not gonna make it. I'm not going to do it. But if I have to jump off the second before a train shows up, I might be able to do it. Pure luck. Not by how badass I am. I'm not. But if I think I'm going to make one, if you're living vicariously through the movie, the subway trap is something you think, I might be able to do that. It'd be real shitty until you found some people. And it'd be real shitty for the rest of your life when you're talking without a tongue. But in terms of an opening trap, a livability ratio, I think the subway trap's pretty solid. And I think, especially for a 9th installment, I think it really packs a punch. I think it was pretty good.
Right on. Well, I'm going to double dip as well.
Oh,
back to back. Yeah. Straight into Saw 3D, which this one, this one wiggled all
Saw
over.
3D, damn.
This one wiggled all over my radar for a minute. And I think that just due to the fact that the next two traps I'm about to list are just so good. This does nothing to remove the quality from this trap, but it's that silent circle, this fish hook from Saw 3D, and that is one of the most cringeworthy moments in horror history. I don't care who you are.
Shout out Boondock Saints.
Right.
I forgot he was in that.
Right.
When I rewatched the other night, I was like, no, it's not Norman Reedus.
This thing, man, it's so gross. And I mean, basically, you're forced to pull a fish hook out of your stomach without making a sound. Otherwise, the bolt's going through the neck, right? I cannot think about this trap without sort of getting the willies. It's one of those ones that it doesn't matter how many times I watch it. It just grosses me out, and it really does make your stomach churn. Thinking about that hook coming up your esophagus, it is disgusting. And it's the precision. It's not always about the guts and the gore. It's about the thought of. It's about the little tiny things, oh my God, you don't need a buzzsaw or a bear trap to cause pain. And to think about that in your throat, ugh.
Oh man, that one I forgot about. That whole movie, honestly, I forgot about. And the fact that they went with, what's his name from...
Chester Bennington? Linkin Park?
Not Linkin Park, homeboy from Boondock Saints. Not Norman Reedus, the other guy.
Flannery.
Sean Flannery. So I liked it. Overall, that one is one of the weaker entries, but the fact that they made a faker go through the trap, I thought was very cool. And when I know you can't see it because you just hear my voice, he is pretty much like wrapping his hand around this wire, putting his arm on his bicep, and yanking the whole thing up. Steven can see it. He probably get the willies from just seeing it because that hook is just coming up through your throat. And when you see it on screen, I'm kind of upset I didn't put this in my list because 100% it deserves to be on here. So good.
I think
so good.
This film is the epitome of throwing a lot of the other stuff in the trash and just flooring it, if you will. They have done everything in this movie to just gross your ass out, and they nail it. So, Saw 3D, not the story you're looking for, but it is the traps you're looking for, man.
I'm at number 3, and I know that we're going to meet. The top 3, we're going to be pretty close, I think.
Yeah, there's going to be some crossover.
There's going to be hella crossover because I know this, because you and I have talked about this previously. This one you put on my radar. If you wouldn't have, I don't know if the trap would have hit the same way it did with me this time. I'm going to go with Saw 3, not 3D. We're going to go with the freezer trap.
Yeah.
We're going to go with...
Yeah.
Okay. So, Saw 3 was the first one where they introduced a larger than one person trap. It was one person who had to learn, throughout the movie, which was an interesting plot line. And I kind of dug it because they took that story throughout the rest of the franchise. And this guy, when I was watching it,
he's such a fucking schmuck, dude.
He's such a schmuck. He's a broke-ass Alfred Molina. This guy sucks so hard.
Rubber band.
He's so terrible. So this guy, he, his kid dies, and he's real sad, and he's got to go through some shit. He's got to go through, like, the lawyer, the guy who killed him, some other shit, like, to come over. Like, literally, he's getting punished for feeling sad, which is a real bummer. But one of the people he meets is a woman who witnessed his son's accident and did not speak on his behalf.
Right.
And she is strung up in the rare instance of nudity in these films, which is something that I did not think about until these rewatches, that usually when you get into a franchise of this size, the nudity goes over the top. You usually kind of sell it to the younger audience that you're going to see nudity in this, and I don't know if it's to its favor or detriment, but they don't do it. They honestly don't. The only time very off the top of my head, the only time I remember nudity is this scene.
It's like, how hard can you slap the censors across the face?
Yeah, and this is the only time I remember it, and it's just, you don't want to see a naked woman ever again, because this poor woman is strung up by her arms, and ice water is blasting at her sides in what is essentially a giant meat locker.
Yeah.
And it's something you think maybe on the first go around, okay, she's real cold. It's like a, Jack and Rose.
Zero blood.
Zero blood.
Brilliant stuff.
You don't think about it. And then you got Alfred Molina's broke-ass cousin over here. Every single thing in this movie, he waits till the very end. And at the very end, he decides to go get the key. And she is frozen to just a hunk of ice, right? And, honestly, I forgot completely about that, but when we talked about this a couple weeks ago, I was like, okay, yeah, I'll keep an eye out for it. I watched it again, and it was one of the hardest to watch.
It's brutal.
Yeah.
Yes.
I got to give it up for Saw 3, The Freezer.
Yeah, it's horrifying. And when you see her as a brick of ice at the end of that scene, it's spooky. I mean, it's very, very ghastly. So, great pick. Number 2, man. You could definitely argue that it is a deep-seated fear for me. I've grown up a little bit. I've gotten a little bit better, but I have not extinguished this demon. I don't think I ever will. And I think a lot of people will agree with me when I say from Saw 2, nobody dies. But good God, do we cry whenever they throw Amanda into the needle pit. This is one of the most iconic moments in the Saw franchise, and for absolute good reason. I rewatched this sequence recently. Just, it makes your skin crawl. Let's just say hats off to Shawnee, because when she hits those needles, she does exactly what every single one of us would do. She doesn't put on a show.
Yeah.
She freezes solid.
Yep.
Like our poor girl in the meat locker.
Yeah, no shit.
And she just, as she becomes more and more desperate, she realizes she's not getting out of here. She starts slamming and throwing those needles, and they're sticking in her. It's a master class in how to, dare I say, get under your fucking skin. It is a nightmare. You don't have to be like me and hate needles for that to get at you. It's gross. You don't have to die in order for you to get creeped the fuck out.
It's not a long sequence. It really doesn't dwell on the fact that they don't need to.
And
they throw Shawnee Smith into a pit of needles. That's all you need.
When she gets picked up and you know what's coming, you're like, no. And she just gets launched. And I think that's where all of us are in her shoes, where we're like, oh wow, well, I would probably get launched. I mean, all of us, we're not built for these sequences.
And rewatching this, like especially Saw 2, like I forgot that you had like a central villain in that guy, like the drug dealing, the mongoloid dirtball who threw her in. Oof. That was tough to watch because he lifted her up by her arms like she was a rag doll,
just scared to death. Like,
and
he just
like
scared person, throw her in there.
He dropped her in there. But let's turn the tables a little bit. All right, my number 2 would have to come. I'm gonna double dip this time. I'm gonna go from Saw 3 again. Let's go with the Rack. Let's go with the Rack from Saw 3. This one is about the turning point of the film when Alfred Molina's identical cousin, who decides he's going to have a little bit of remorse, decides a little too late, doesn't he?
Too late.
The Rack, which is Jigsaw's personal favorite, as he says in the voiceover.
Yes, he does.
Which is weird to me. Literally is just ripping your arms and your legs off. Just, it's crushing you. One at a time, right? But you got to get a key, right? And the key is right by, like the sawed-off shotgun. There's a whole big elaborate thing.
Right.
But the kicker is, the guy in the Rack is the guy who ran over Alfred Molina's...
His kid.
Alfred Molina's... what's one of the impersonator? Alfred Molina's impersonator's son, right? This guy, he's just the worst. Like the first couple, like he's like, oh, you didn't do this. And now he's like, oh, fuck, I need to, try to save these people.
Right.
So like once again, he waits till the end and you just see, because it's a longer sequence.
Absolutely.
Of all of them, it's one of the longer ones because you have 2 arms and you have 2 legs. By this time, he'd actually done right and actually saved another person from the previous trap, which is pretty gross. Yes. It's not as hard to watch. But it's super gross because
the slop.
Yeah, the slop. The slop trap.
It's gross.
But they fuck everything up, kill him, and kill the other guy. But the Rack is super hard to watch because you got bones breaking every which way.
Yes, you do.
You've got tears. You've got a guy begging for remorse. You have all the things that make a trap good, and they knew how to shoot it. Honestly, in that film, I think they really put the screws to it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. You got 2 arms, you got 2 legs, and you got 1 head, and number 1 for me is the Rack. This is about pacing, it's about timing, it's about everything, but I think that everything you said is absolutely correct. And you subtract, Alfred Molina's ass.
People are going to look it up and be like, is Alfred Molina in Saw 3? He's not in Saw 3.
$20 bill. No, as far as the traps are concerned, this thing is the best in my book because it embodies everything that we're there for. Because a lot of times, the worst traps are the ones where our protagonist isn't the one in the trap. It's the choice being made. I think that a lot of times delivers a lot harder because the moral choice is, would I save this person? Right. Not would I save myself? Oh, man. When his head starts to turn, your whole heart sinks out of your ass, and you feel like this guy didn't mean to do this. He fucked up.
You're right.
And you realize that, because of our bumbling protagonist, he's not getting out of this.
By the time that they're putting the screws literally to part number 3 of 4, he's toast, and you just know the head is coming soon because this guy is just stringing along. He wants to know this and this and this, and he's got to make a big thing of it. But man, that one, it doesn't make it any easier to watch.
Exactly. It is the pinnacle of the trilogy, if you will. If you Saw 1, Saw 2, Saw 3, if you take that as its own thing, it is the crowning jewel moment of the trap murders.
Yeah.
Which is, again, why we were going there. I want to harken back to why this was happening in the first place. We were always about shocks, when, what videos were going to shock us the next day when we were kids.
I think if we did an entire thing on this, which I know we're going long on the traps, but you have to think the singular trap versus the group quote unquote trap.
Absolutely.
If you're thinking about like the guy in the chainsaw, the barbed wire pit, that is a one person trap. That is you and you alone. The reverse bear trap, you and you alone. But when you're thinking of the officer rig and everything, like this is an entire thing, and you can't do that because the guy who was caught smoking had no way of getting out of there. That's not a trap. That's a death sentence.
Exactly.
So, like, we're not going to get into the mythology of Saw because this would be an 8-hour podcast and we would never make it out alive. But I will tell you, for my number one choice,
what do we got?
I'm going to go with the needle pit.
Absolutely.
It's a winner for a reason. Saw 2, the needle pit, Shawnee Smith getting pulled up by her arms and just tossed in there. It's not even a trap. They could have like picked something long and like scooped the stuff out of there.
Right.
But the fact that she was thrown in made her a trap.
God, it's harsh.
Like you look at it like, later and you're like, oh, you can just, until they hit the button. Everything always starts when you hit play. Look around your shit before you hit play. Like, scoop around there with a rake. Maybe there's a rake in that fucking room. We don't know. Look around there with a rake. See if there's something. Because don't just throw Shawnee Smith in there. Because even if she is in 3, which she's in 3, she's got AIDS. She's got something going on there.
Everything.
She's hosed.
Yeah.
But for me, if we're going to get into what constitutes a trap, this may not even count. But then I guess we get another whole choice. But for the things that just make me squirm, rip off an arm, rip off a finger, I don't care. Poke me with 50 needles, you're going to get some woof. Man, that's a tough one, man.
100% agree.
It's so, even to this day, I watched them the other day. I am a 31-year-old man. And I watched that going, oof. Oh, she's fucked, bro. She wasn't fucked. She actually made it out. But good for her.
Right. I love how we traded 2s and 1s.
Yeah, 2s and 1s was
beautiful.
Good, yeah.
Both are unbelievably iconic traps.
Yeah, 3 through 5 were mixed. I like that. We mixed it up more than I thought we were. I thought that 2 and 1 would be close, but Freezer.
Did you have an honorable mention?
Yeah, my honorable mention was the reverse bear trap.
I didn't name mine, did I?
No, you didn't.
Mine's going to be the furnace from Saw 2.
Oh, yeah.
And the furnace, it's not one that's high, obviously.
It should be. It should be held higher, though.
It is so fucking terrifying to hear him when he's in. And I think, at the end when he pokes half his body out, and you just know, not even half, but like maybe the top third, you know what's happening inside the furnace. And I think, it's the same principle as the ice. It's a natural thing. We all know what fire does to people. We all know what ice does to people. Being burned alive, I've heard, is one of the, outside of maybe drowning, I don't know, the worst ways to die. And to think about being stuck inside a furnace and seeing that little, turn me on the other side of the fire.
After the fact, though, that was like, he was already roasted, and he was like, oh, look over there. You didn't pick the freezer in any of them? You were the one who turned me on to the freezer one. I was like, that's a stupid
It's funny,
pick.
because I had, as my honorable mentions, I had the furnace / the freezer. If you wouldn't have mentioned it, I was going to do the freezer. But I really want to give love to the furnace because I want to call it out because...
You're right. I think that's smart. The furnace one was because he only saw it too late. Because he probably just going to be like, yep, there it is. Same thing with the, what's the one, the steam one in 6 or 7.
Where the guy can burn himself, but she's down in the mid or whatever the person's down in the mid.
It's kind of the same thing.
Yeah. But that one is so personal.
I'm glad that 2 and 1 were switched and the 3 through 5 had a little mix in it. That's good. That's better than I thought it was going to be.
I agree. You ready to rate this movie?
I am going to let you go first.
Absolutely.
Only because... Man, I have been up and down, especially since I've seen it twice. I think that is fair to put at the preface of my review. Yeah. You've seen it once. Right. I've seen it twice. Right. I just got to watch all the other ones. Steven.
I think Spiral it's a really interesting way to kind of in a way, reignite. It's not a sequel. It's a reimagining. The social statements were there, which Saw is a very socially driven horror franchise. I mean, it thrives on what's happening.
If you don't believe that, watch it again.
Yeah, exactly. Some of the drawbacks for me were just, as a police procedural, like I said before, I think you need some dynamic in there that didn't quite exist. So I am going to give this Spiral. Let's see. Oh, I gotta think of my metric here. I'm going to give it 2.75 slices. If you know, you know.
If you know. You son
Out
of a bitch.
of 4. Scott, what do you got?
Stephen King. Slices was what I was gonna do. Man, I gotta tell you, I was gonna come in there pretty close to that. And I think I liked it just a smidge more. And it's gonna give it the upper hand. We'll get to that in a second, but I'll tell you why. I think that Darren Lynn Bousman upped his game from the previous 3 Saw installments that he did. I think that Chris Rock really showed more depth than he's used to. Like, I haven't seen the season of Fargo he's in. I need to. Number one, I haven't seen any of those, and I've heard they're miraculous versions of television. Like, I've heard that every season they do is one-upping itself. So, number one, I need to see those.
Agreed.
So, Chris Rock is, weirdly enough, on the rise, and he's not exactly a young talent. I think that the traps were exciting. I have 2 of them on my list. I think that it was fun. Yeah. I loved the new direction it went in. Small bitches here. The Book of Saw. What book was this? Where was the book? Somebody write a book? I didn't see a fucking book.
Right.
There was no book. You could have called it something else. But, like, I think overall, and this is going to be a high score. I know that. I know I'm going to get grief for this. But I'm going to go, and somebody told me the other day, our metric needs to be put out. We need to know what this is, how we grade this. Sometimes you just enjoy a movie. Sometimes you can't put to words why you like a movie. You can't justify why this is better than that. And this is one of those rare instances. I'm going to give this a 3-star. 3. Let's go tongues. Because you already took my fucking slices, Steven. And it was an in-joke. It was very funny. You ruined the whole thing.
You made me go first for the record.
True. 3 tongues just because of the rewatchability of it. Because it's such a weird hodgepodge of a movie. You start off, you got the trap. You've got the introduction to Chris Rock with the Forrest Gump monologue intro. Everything about it says that it should not work. But for some reason, even the weird voice of the new Jigsaw pig, everything about this movie says it should not work. But we all left enjoying it.
I do think that the Saw voice, or the pig voice needs a tune-up.
It needs a tune-up.
That thing sounded like something that would be reading like Encarta back in the day. Like if you had like Siri reading Encarta back in the day, like some sort of weird-ass like hybrid version of like
I didn't realize that was in the trailer. Like, and I told you, hey, look out for that. Like, Rick said that was in the trailer, and he wasn't surprised by it. But, like, when he was like, hello, detective, I'm here to rip your fingers off, and that's just the bottom line. You have spent an entire... I can't even go on the... I should have done the entire cast. Like, hello. I will go to the ass end of my review. I liked the ending. And I think that everybody, even with the negative reviews I saw... They liked the ending. Even though I think that all 3 of us, Rick, Steven, and myself, all saw the ending being the villain, pretty much squared away the first half of the movie. We know who it was. The ending itself, how everything wrapped up, was pretty neat. Could the cops have looked to their right and saw somebody maliciously going, and going down the elevator. Yes, they could. They were too busy shooting Sam Jackson, okay? They Swiss cheese Sam Jackson. He goes, motherfucker! And he just gets ripped up.
The way that it started was the way that it ended, sort of like this like bookends. Like, oh, you killed my pops, I kill your pops, and then it's like ha ha ha, and then the elevator closes, which is not necessarily bad, but it was very on the nose, and
for sure,
it was one of those things where like you only had one way out if you're going to move forward with this, which they're going to, because
they've already. I looked at IMDb, they don't have a definitive title yet or anything, or Saw 10 or what have you, but it's on the way. There's no way this didn't make money in pandemic times. And
do you think that Spiral was a good name? I didn't really think about this till just now, but as far as going forward,
I think with everything they had to work with, it's inventive. I think it's kitschy. I have problems with the overall title, how long it is with Spiral from the Book of Saw. But what else were they going to do? Do you have something better than that? Like,
well,
that's what I was thinking. Like, I don't think it's terrible, but like, what else are you going to do?
I mean,
because
I guess
it is a Saw movie. Sorry,
yeah,
but it's not a Saw movie. You know what I mean?
It's a reimagining of this franchise, but
so
it's like
it kind of works.
But if it's about cops, like the spiral of violence is kind of what I took from it. Like it's never goes away. It's always circling around. It never goes away, right? It's kind of like But if it's about cops now.
Bad.
How many bad cops can we watch before?
That was the other thing. The end monologue from the villains, like Spiral. John Kramer had it right. Like, he made some bullshit thing about how he looped it all as John Kramer. He didn't give a fuck about that. It was just a shoehorn thing in to like mention the other prequels. Right. I thought that was silly, but I think of all of its shitty swings, I think it had enough creativity behind it and enough originality. I dug it, man. I'm curious to see where this shows up. And I told you when I walked in the door, when we walked through your front door, I said, I thought I was stupid. I thought that I was overvaluing certain movies and this and that. I typed in top so many Saw movies or whatever, and I was justified because everybody else was coming at me with such hostility, and I was just some random dude. I don't even know who the fuck wrote it. I was just curious to see what they said, just for some validity, and I was curious to see like what the overall consensus is of this one, because looking back on the previous films, they are met with much more acclaim now than they were 10 years ago. For sure. Because I remember like, Saw 18 through 27 were not fucking like met with applause. This one is right in the middle. Like, Spiral is right in the middle of the Saw films, like critically, which is the fact that this movie is getting this same, if not, and it's only been out a couple weeks, so it can only go, usually, I'm just stating what happens after a certain amount of weeks, it can only go down. More often than not. Right, yeah. More often than not, these films don't go up after time. And I was looking at them, and I didn't look at the overall from 1 to 9, but I was very surprised to see that this one was pretty low, which blew my freaking mind, man. What? 2.7 and a 3.0? That's 2.75 and a 3.0?
It's
Spiral.
A favorite.
It's still out. Go check it out. I think like it's worth it. If you like the traps, it's worth it. If you want to see something different, it's 100% worth it.
And it doesn't completely abandon, like I said, the original flavor of the films, which is good.
I will say I'm happy that they didn't rely on Tobin Bell. They used a picture here, a picture there, a name. They didn't use a voiceover, which might have been to their detriment. Hello, Detective Steven. But like, they didn't use a flashback. None of this was circled back to the beginning. Saw was just something they used as a starting point. And I thought that was interesting. I really think that...
it was interesting.
Yeah. And obviously they're going to continue down this road. I wish that Chris Rock, and I think Bausman will probably follow through with it because I think he did a really good job with this one.
Yeah. Agreed.
Oh,
if Chris Rock has a counterpoint in the next film,
that's the problem is you can't do it right off the gate because he doesn't have a count. If you did a Riggs and Murtaugh, throw in Jigsaw, Riggs! Jigsaw! Well, I guess then we'd have to bring back Danny Glover. But it's just Riggs and Murtaugh. Why not? Do it. He's not dead. Riggs, Murtaugh, Jigsaw. Bring it back.
There it is.
Come on, Lionsgate. Throw me some fucking money. Throw us some money. Dirtbag Cinema presents Saw 10.
Not Spiral. Because...
No, just Saw 10.
It's got to be Saw 10.
At this point, it's just Saw 10.
Yeah.
You like that?
I love it. Why not? That is Spiral, our official review. Do you have anything for our viewers this week to watch? Any recommendations?
Man, I don't have my notebook. You see, I don't have my notebook here, so I'm going off the cuff here. I will say,
yes,
I have been binging, and I finished before I came over here. Invincible. And I will say, if you are a fan of superheroes, if you're a fan of the subversion of the superhero genre, and you are a fan of Rick's show, The Boys, from episodes back, I will assume, you will like Invincible. It's from Robert Kirkman and Company. And it's a completely animated show, which kind of follows in the idea of The Boys, like an adult superhero coming of age story. It follows a Steven Yeun from Walking Dead fame. He voices a high school kid who's really coming into his superhero powers, and his father, voiced by the invaluable J.K. Simmons, as the world's most powerful man. They're the Superman in this instance, the Omni-Man. There's 8 episodes in this first season, and it is adult, but it's not as hard hitting as I thought. Like, everybody was really like bombarding me with how good this was. It's very good. Like, I watched it like in the span of 2 days, like back to back, 40-minute episodes, 8 episodes. Like, it's no short watch, but I really dug it. I thought that maybe they could have pushed the envelope a little bit more with the animation. Like, I felt, say what you will about DC, the DC comics, they have been putting out a hell of a run of animated features. And I felt like it was just another DC thing, which is not. It's not affiliated with them at all. But I feel like if you're going to like make your mark, make your fucking mark. And they did it well. I'm not here to knock them. I'm just saying maybe go a little bit overboard in season 2. But J.K. Simmons is he's the Superman / kind of anti-hero, and I'm not gonna give any more than that. Like, he's the father of the main character, and it's like the main character's coming of age, but also like him realizing other truths about this superhero, the superpowers that he's been bestowed, and everything. Like, it's just one of those kind of Watchmen you take for granted that there are superheroes around.
Nice.
You don't question that.
Yeah. But
also there's other shit going on. So I think you'd really dig it.
Yeah.
And I like the Robert Kirkman of it all, the animation. He didn't do the animation. I'm pretty sure he wrote it, but the animation of it all is pretty fun. Like, there's exploding heads and shit like that. But I really hope that they really dial it up in season 2. Not to say that they weren't great in season 1, but The Boys has proved to me that you can really put that to 11 with a live action show. I really want to see what they can do with an animated show.
That's really
so
cool.
The Boys, it's an Amazon Prime original, and I mean, as we talked about at the beginning of the episode, I went nuts with Saw. So I watched every Saw movie. Do with that what you will. So watch them, don't watch them. It was nuts. But I did watch a couple Vinegar Syndrome joints. I watched The Spookies, which was nuts, Steven.
Yeah.
There was no coherent through line, really. There was just a whole bunch of pretty decent mask effects and makeup effects throughout, and I think it had something to do with the fact that the director shot this and they hired somebody else to shoot this, and it was very disconjointed. It was fun, but I really expected a little bit more. For the second one, I watched David Dakota's The Nightmare Sisters. And judging from your sound effects, you know about this joint. It is
familiar,
from... yeah. After they had did, let's see, the Sorority Babes at the Slime Ball Bowl-rama, which is a spectacular joint. If you haven't seen it, check it out. David Dakota, Linnea Quigley, and company, I guess had some extra money and one house to shoot a movie. And they're like, fuck it, we'll shoot another movie. That's what I love about the 80s. And also what I used to hate about the 80s is they could just get shit done in the weekend. But now there's a certain purity to it, a certain like a go get 'em spirit that I really dig.
Yeah,
and like you
absolutely.
watch it now, they shot this movie in a weekend, and it's just Linnea Quigley, Michelle Bauer, and
Brink Stevens.
Yeah, Brink Stevens, and they literally play like nerdy versions of themselves trying to get dates on the weekend from a fraternity. That's the movie. That is it, and they meet up with a crystal ball.
Get hacked.
They get hacked. They meet up with a crystal ball, which turns them into straight up monsters. Like, when I say monsters, keep in mind, this movie was shot in a weekend. So they were turned into succubuses, which a cute play on the term succubus is they're engaging in sexual activity, and they straight up bite some dick off. Like, that is the turn in this movie, in which they don't show anything. There just happens to be a fog machine at the end of the bed. I was watching this going, what is going on? Like, you had these three, like, ultimate actresses from the 80s, no-name fraternity guys coming over to, like, meet these girls. They play with a crystal ball, and the movie just ensues after that. It's an absolute shit show. But was it fun? 100% it was fun. They had one house.
I love it.
A handful of actors. And, Dave was like, you know what? Let's shoot another movie. So I forget the guy who wrote it, but they just sat down, wrote this bad boy out, and said, hey, let's do succubus. They can all inhabit the three chicks. They're going to bite some dick off. And that's going to happen here. That's the movie. Boom. Right. That's it. Nightmare Sisters. Boom.
Nailed it.
And I was watching this going, like, Spookies is supposed to be this movie that was like really heralded as like a big 80s movie, and there's really, really good like effects in it. But as for like a linear storyline or anything, like, I was like, this movie is not that good. When I watched Nightmare Sisters, and it's an absolute shit show. I was like, I had more fun with Nightmare Sisters, though.
From what I understand, this is just what I understand about Spookies, is that it's one of those ones that if you grew up on it in the 80s, it's more of like a nostalgic trip.
Nostalgia doesn't always mean good.
No. But it's sort of like that chicken soup for the old fucked up soul, Like, I think that's where Vincent releasing that. I think that's where that might have come from. But I hear you on that.
And they said it was honestly because that movie's been kind of chopped up for years, because like this cut and this cut, and it was interesting to see. I didn't dislike it. I mean, I've definitely seen better, but if I'm watching back-to-back movies like that, and they're both
how do you not pick?
And they're both absolute nonsense, you have to pick the lesser of two evils, right? And The Lesser of Two Evils is the movie they shot over the weekend where they had no money, and they realized that half the fucking movie was shot by a guy in a crystal ball going, ha 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 ha! And they made that more fun than the movie with the special effects that actually had the budget.
Right.
So that, to me, is something,
I hear you. No, 100%, yeah. I mean, I hear what you're saying. So, I got a little... double feature to recommend for this week. This is absolutely crazy. So we watched Spiral, Monday last week?
Yeah.
We caught it at the old Screenland Armor, and I instantly knew what movie I wanted to revisit whenever we would talk about a recommendation. Well, it just so happened that our patron saint, Joe Bob Briggs, announced that Bruce Campbell and Bill Lustig were both going to be on his show this week. And I popped in the Blu-ray on Friday afternoon. I was like, oh, I'm going to watch the movie. Because it escaped my mind. I'd seen the announcement maybe on like Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever the hell it was. And I popped in the Blu-ray on Friday. And I was honest, I really want to watch this movie. And I got about 5-6 minutes into it and I stopped. And it all flooded back into my head. And I'm like, Bill Lustig, Bruce Campbell, Maniac Cop. I got to get this out of my Blu-ray player because there's like a 75% chance that this is going to play tonight on The Last Drive-In. And sure as shit, we got the double feature of Maniac Cop and Maniac Cop 2.
Very good.
I'm going to bundle these just real quick because, there's a whole lot of similarities. But this is Bill Lustig. I love this man. I've heard him in, this, that, and the other, interviews, but seeing him on The Last Drive-In was awesome. But, he's the founder of the, Blue Underground.
Blue Underground, represent.
And, oh my God. And just so many great movies that have come out of, the seedy underbelly of America and Europe. They've done a whole lot of stuff to pull a lot of films into the daylight. And Bill Lustig is just increasingly one of my heroes. I love this man. Like, he comes on to The Last Drive-In. This is during Maniac Cop 2. And in the first episode, they talked to Bruce Campbell. In the second episode, the second film, they talked to Bill. And it was just a great time. Maniac Cop is, for anybody who loves like that gritty, New York, if you like that, Bill is your guy, first and foremost.
Yeah, no
like
shit.
Abel Ferreira, yes. I mean, there's a lot of guys that'll do that for you, but Bill is like on the top of my recommendation list. He will deliver on all of the sleazy underground New York nonsense that you're looking for. And Maniac Cop's a blast. I had seen Maniac Cop. Rewatching Maniac Cop was what I wanted to do. Stopped. Rewatched it on Joe Bob. Loved it just as much as I loved it the first time. Really great, social commentary for the time and for today, unfortunately. And but it sort of has this weird double edge. It doesn't pick a lane, and I like that about it. There's a clear problem in the movie, and it's a slasher film in essence. This guy's chasing down these people and butchering them. Almost Jason Voorhees style.
Yeah.
And but there's a whole lot of social commentary that doesn't actually nail down on one end or the other. But that is some of the best social commentary where you can digest it and kind of decide for yourself where what the movie is saying. I had not seen Maniac Cop 2 until last night. I had not seen the sequel. Have you seen the sequel?
No, I haven't.
Holy fucking smokes. I have not seen.
Holy
This
fucking
was
smokes.
made in the year of our Lord 1990, and what a show. I have not. I was so excited. Whenever Joe Bob Briggs came on after Maniac Cop and said, hey, this movie is even better than the original, believe it or not, it delivered. And they had 4 times the budget on Maniac Cop 2, and Bill left every single fucking dollar bill on the screen. There's so many stunts, and there's 2 chase scenes in this movie that feel like they're out of a giant big blockbuster picture. Driving through New York City in the middle of Christmas time, blasting through Christmas. Maybe it's a Christmas movie.
Oh,
Yuletide action, but this thing is a trip. So I'm sorry, I'll ramble all night if I don't reel myself in. These 2 movies, Maniac Cop 2, just check them out. If you like, horror, action, just fun, seedy New York City underbelly nonsense, they're well executed films. There's a ton of scares, and there's more suspense in Maniac Cop than there is in Maniac Cop 2, but Maniac Cop 2 has way more it's way more fun. It's more fun. It's like all sorts of craziness, and they actually broke records in the final scene of that film with stunts. They did some stuff with fire and jumping out of buildings that had never been done before. And
really?
Yeah, it was a record-breaking film.
I'm assuming
at the
they
time.
had that from Blue Underground, maybe?
Yes.
I'm going to have to get that then.
Yeah. All three, actually. There's 3 Maniac Cops. I haven't seen Maniac Cop 2, and like Maniac Cop 3, like Behind the Badge or something like that. I don't know. But Bill and Larry Cohen, the producer, they jetted like halfway through the production on the third one. So it's kind of halfway his. I don't know. I haven't seen it
out nonetheless.
But yeah, Larry Cohen and Bill Lustig making magic, 2 movies in a row, and they pick up right. I mean, there's no gap. It's just Maniac Cop 2 picks up right afterwards. What a show.
Good.
Just roll around it and have a good time. And it just fit the bill for the crazy cop spiral movie.
Oh, absolutely.
That we had here. Anyway, that's what I got.
Well, tell them our schedule.
Guys, so I guess this is a big announcement.
It is kind of big.
I mean, holy smokes, this is week 20.
20.
We've been doing this for creeping up on half a year, and we just really wanted to take a minute here to kind of consider like where we're going forward. We got 20 episodes in our first season of Dirtbag Cinema, but we want to get our head around what season 2 looks like because we want to move forward with the Dirtbag Cinema, I guess, experience as a whole.
We want to bring you the best possible product. And like if there's something during our little hiatus that really sparks something, it's not like we're not going to tell you about it. We're going to be around, but we're going to bring you back the Dirtbag Cinema you know and love, but just a better freaking format. That's all.
Absolutely. We'll still be on YouTube, so if there's anything crazy going on, we will touch on it there. Scott and I are going to talk a little bit about Blu-rays. And by a little bit, I mean a lot of bit. Because we got some noise coming your way with some sales and some highlights that we definitely want to talk about.
But honestly, you guys have been spectacular. Thank you for all the likes, the shares, all the all that stuff. But more importantly, thank you for all the love. Really, it's been super fun for 20 episodes. Here's for 200 more.
Absolutely. We are available at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, all at Dirtbag Cinema, and you can email us. Please do send us a little email love if that's your jam.
Yeah.
At thedirtbagcinema@gmail.com.
If you're looking at this one right now because you want to get the highs and lows of Spiral from the Book of Saw, and you haven't checked out 1 through 19, check it out. Check out our back catalog. We got our, if you were a dirtbag-ite, I don't know. We got to figure out what our followers are called because, I don't know. Dirtbag-ite doesn't sound good. We got the T-shirts at the Cotton Bureau.
That's absolutely
We got a whole bunch of stuff going on. But, you got anything else before the big send-off?
I say thank you guys for 20 episodes. That's been almost half a year. It's really kind of humbling to see the support. I know that when we started this out, we didn't really know what to expect. I know that we've come a long way since our Handshake 5, and maybe we will give it the old backhand 5 here soon and circle back because you know where to find us. Until next time, Dirtbags, we'll see you at the cinema.
See you at the cinema.